board is transacting its business. Disruptive individuals will be asked to leave. And we also ask, we give you a moment to hold up your signs now, and then put your signs down throughout the rest of the meeting. This meeting is live streamed, and some of the signs are blocking the live stream. Okay, thank you. Please place your sign on the door. Now moving on to public comment. If you will introduce yourself again, name the organization you're representing, and then tell us the subject of your remarks. Our Vice Chairman of the Board, Casey Hall, over here, will will let you know when your time is up, and we will cut the mics after 1 minute. So our first speaker tonight is Kalita Perkins.
To Superintendent Golden and honorable members of the Williamson County Board members, my name is Kalita. I work in the ICU at one of the local hospitals here. I've been in the field for 21 years, working alongside with the COVID patients. You're looking at someone who's exhausted, frustrated, and feeling helpless at this point. We know this Delta variant affects the kids, and it's at an all-time high. Some of these babies can't be vaccinated. Imagine what's going to happen in the next few weeks. Right now, over 120,000 Americans have been infected with COVID in one day, kids included. Our local children's hospital is on diversion right now. We're just within our first week of school. Yes, no more masks sounds good until it affects your family personally. It's our duty to protect our children, and we don't have time to wait for others to get vaccinated. But what we can do right now is agree that masks will slow the spread. It's our best defense we have to keep some type of normalcy within our community. So let's link arms, protect our children during these unprecedented times while we have the chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shelby Rollins.
Shelby Rollins, 6'6". Can I ask you a question? Did you think about my 8-year-old daughter when you had masks mandated last year? Because I want to tell you her story. I picked her up on her first day of school last year, and she cried the whole way home. Her love for school extinguished because of the lack of connection that she needed. Were you there in my car? For months, when I had to pry her fingers from the back seat to get her to go inside when she begged me not to, all while her younger brother watched with growing anxiety about how he was about to start kindergarten this year. Were you there when she was shamed by classmates because she had a mask exemption, that they had been indoctrinated by fear and made her feel like her beautiful face was a threat to them? Please stop talking about safety until you are willing to acknowledge how unsafe this was for so many. Because where there is risk, there has to be choice.
Kepler? Excuse me, doctor, just a moment, please.
No problem.
On the technical, I gotta know the live stream is not on yet.
If I may, Madam Chair, Mr. Gelber's microphone's not on. I want to make sure everyone heard that. He said that the live stream is not working. I've gotten confirmation from our communications department it's not working. It is on WCTV, and they are recording it, and our technology department is working on trying to make that work.
We're all live streaming.
Dr. Kepler.
Hi, I'm Jim Keffer. I'm a pediatrician working here in Middle Tennessee. We moved here about 15 years ago with our 3 children, all of whom have gone to Williamson County schools. Last year, our son had to be quarantined 3 times because of exposures to COVID at school. My wife and I are both public school products. We went to public school all the way through graduate school. And at a practice that I'm at, we see about 4,000 to 6,000 children each year, each of us, coming in for sick visits, checkups. And what we've seen in the last year is some kids getting sick with COVID. Most of them do really well, but some of those kids having some long-term issues with their heart, What I have not seen is any kids coming in with my asthma's acting up because I have to wear a mask at school, or I have a skin infection because I'm wearing a mask at school. Come on.
Please continue.
Thank you. We would love it if there was another way out of this pandemic, but what we have right now is a way to vaccinate our students and our public, and we can wear masks until all that. We can wear masks until all of that happens.
No way.
But
Excuse me, Mr. Hall, have we reached our minute?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. 1 minute per person.
including the cat calls.
I paused for a minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excuse me, Mr. Hall. I don't think I heard your notification, so, okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Mr. Gallagher?
They said there's 1,200 people waiting to watch online. I would prefer that everybody get to see this once live.
Is that accurate? Is that accurate?
If I may, Mr. McNeese is moved to the back to work on the street. Is there any report you can give us? Go ahead.
I know it's happened before, but I can't recall what meeting.
Ms. Burthon, if you would, can you give us some information?
They're still working on it. I don't have an update for you. We're trying to live stream through the county's channel. It is being broadcast through WCTV, however. So if you're on cable, you can watch it. And it's being recorded.
I've seen reports the Fox 17 app is working as well, so please spread the word to your friends.
The Moms for Liberty Tennessee Facebook page is also live streaming. Moms for Liberty Instagram is live.
News outlets are live streaming. Is that right? Channel 5,
Rock and roll.
Fox. Okay.
So if you're listening and wanting to watch the live stream, you've been given some alternate routes to watch that. So we'll continue. The next speaker is Michael Miller. Please, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Mike. Please reinstate a mask mandate and all other protocols used last year. I'm in data analytics with a kidney dialysis company. I'm not representing my company, but have seen the data. COVID has ravaged the fragile community already on dialysis and has caused severe kidney issues in infected people, including kids. My kids both have IEPs. Last year in WCS Online, neither of them received the level of services afforded by their IEPs. In March, WCS required us to choose online or in person for this year, stating it would continue to heed CDC guidance. Given this promise of a safe environment that would provide what they're guaranteed under the least restrictive environment clauses of IDEA, we chose in-person school. Kids are guaranteed by law a free and equal access to a safe public education in the least restrictive environment possible. An environment where children are not protected from an airborne disease violates this. We must protect those who are too young, including those in middle school.
Excuse me, audience, I want to clarify that Mr. Hall or I call time. Mr. Hall, if you can please just verbally give the signal. Our next speaker is, I believe, Jennifer Kim.
Look at all these maskers.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Jennifer Kurtz. I've already personally emailed all of you the unbiased data to make your decision. The Delta variant will spread in our schools like a wildfire. There is risk to children. We are seeing it already in our country and in our state. Children and family members will die if you do not put mitigation strategies in place. Our pediatric hospitals are already full of RSV and parainfluenza. This is unprecedented in summer months. There will not be staff to care for the children when they get sick, not just from COVID, but even from these other childhood viruses. and our adult ICUs are already reaching capacity. We need masking, physical distancing, cohorting, eating lunch in classrooms. We need it all back. We need it the same as last year. It is like you were...
Excuse me, just take a pause for a minute. We're just going to sit in silence for a minute.
We're in timeout.
Mr. Hall, where was she with her time? Dr. Kurt, you have 20 more seconds.
Thank you very much. It is like you were throwing a large chickenpox party with our children, only the stakes are incredibly higher. How can you not prioritize the life of the child? This is unconscionable. Ignoring the guidance of experts from the CDC and the AAP to prioritize your politics and believe what you have read on social media has more credence than these organizations or the scores of physicians that are here or watching us online is unconscionable. Please do the right thing. Find the humility and protect our children.
He's not talking.
Your job.
Our next speaker is Michelle Stoll.
Good evening. Please reinstate a mask mandate now. Without it, it will be impossible for my youngest to have the best option of in-person school. He has cerebral palsy and is high risk, but deserves the best education that only you can provide. We moved to Williamson County 2 years ago for one reason only, the schools. Before we moved, you made an impression, one strong enough to uproot my family for not only your district's academic reputation, but for the emotional, social, physical, and whole child support you provide. Through my middle son's experience at school, my first impression was reinforced. When COVID hit and the district took adequate precautions and gave online learning options, I was relieved and so appreciative. But now, after abandoning AAP and CDC safety guidelines amid a pandemic surge, I no longer have the same impression of Williamson County schools. Your reputation is on the line. Will you make it right by protecting our high-risk and unvaccinated children? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jessica Stoll.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, Jessica Stoltz, District 5. I'm a WCS parent. Please instate a temporary mask mandate and all other protocols you used last year. Michelle, who just asked you to protect her high-risk family, didn't say this. In late 2020, her dad died from COVID. He got it while working where masks were encouraged, but not required. Many didn't heed the advice. In 13 fast days, he was dead. That's devastating. It will devastate our community every time it happens. Had masking been required, the outcome could likely be different. An evidence review by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the USA says, widespread mask use reduces community transmission. Masks help people keep germs to themselves. Near universal adoption of masks in public in combination with complementary public health measures reduces community spread when sustained. Public mask wearing is most effective when compliance is high. Mandates are effective at increasing compliance. They recommend that public-facing entities require masks. This credible scientific body used the word require. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mr. Hall, that was a minute, correct? Okay.
No, that was
After somebody, I will start the timer when somebody gives their name. And we'll hear the timer, and the timer has it covered.
Can't understand you.
Madam Chair, can we ask anyone at the mic, if they're wearing a mask, to please remove their mask?
Sir, you're out of order. Our
We
next
want to hear
speaker
people.
Is David Grimmett.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is David Grimmett. I'm an attorney here in Franklin. I'm also board certified in child welfare law. I'm here to give you a legal perspective as far as what the mask mandate means. I believe we can agree on three specific fundamental rights. The first is that our children have a fundamental right to education. Second is that parents have a fundamental right to choose and govern their own children. And third is that if you decide to do a mask mandate, you must show two things. You must show that it has a compelling interest, and second, there is no less drastic alternative. I would argue that you do not have either. First of all, I know my daughter better than anybody. I know how she learns. I know masks do not work. Second, there is a less drastic alternative. Parents should be allowed to choose what they want and how their children go to school. At the end of the day, I see these people with the masks. They believe it's best for their children. I believe it is not. I should be given the choice. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Short person on deck. I'm not starting yet. Chelsea Gilbert, District 4, Brad Fiskus's district. Hi, Brad. Great to see you again. So I got Adeline here. She is holding a box, and it says right here, just for our lovely, lovely audience, the general the risk of contracting an infectious disease. Go figure. I'll tell you what you are going to contract. Yes. Is this a pretty picture or what? This is what is floating around. Bacteria, fungus, cases of strep and pneumonia have been found on masks brought into labs. We know that you have money allocated for basically for slowing the spread and addressing the health needs of our county. We demand, as parents of Williamson County, that you take these masks from the kids at the end of the week and take them to labs and get them tested. We want to know what's on those masks, and I ask parents to agree to stand with me now, right now, stand. We want those masks tested. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chelsea from District 11. Please reinstate a mask mandate and all other mitigation strategies used last year. I'm a nurse practitioner. My son is too young to be vaccinated, and right now COVID cases are rising in our county and state. I felt very comfortable last year with the measures that were taken to keep our kids safe, but even with all those measures, my son still got COVID from a student he sat beside at lunch, the only time in the day he was unmasked. The Delta variant spreads much easier than previous variants. We are also seeing more and more kids with severe cases. If my son was able to catch COVID in last year's environment, with the less transmissible variant, consider the spread we'll see this year with the majority of students and staff unmasked. As long as we have a large, vulnerable population who can't access the vaccine, we must wear masks to protect them and keep them in school. You are entrusted with the safety of students, and I know you don't take that lightly. Thank you. Our next speaker is Angela Ward.
And Ms. Will, before you start, can I have one of the deputies come stand in this middle section, please? 6 feet apart. Like, yes, thank you, thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. My name is Angela Zool. I'm a nurse practitioner.
I'm sorry, Angela. Sure. Please go ahead.
Thanks. I'm a nurse practitioner at a pretty well-known walk-in clinic here in Williamson County, and also a mom to 2 kids at College Grove Elementary. My experience in the last 18 months, as you can imagine, has been quite a roller coaster, and we've seen a lot of surges in numbers. But this year, we've seen it affecting kids more so. I've had a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old positive in my last shift. A guidance counselor from Murray County who had started a week previous to us. And it's not going to end. And even regardless of what your stance on masks is, we all want our kids to be in school. We want the schools to operate. We want the teachers to be healthy. And this pandemic has been called a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And unfortunately, a lot of our kids are 12 and under, and they're in their group. And it's our job to protect them and yours. And I hope you do it.
Our next speaker is Britt Maxwell.
Hello, I'm Britt Maxwell. I'm a doctor at one of the big hospitals in the West End. I'm a father of 2 that are too young to get vaccinated, and I'm here because I'm afraid for them. I'm afraid for the choice that they can't make, because the facts are clear. Kids are getting sick. It's happening now. Pediatric ICUs and ERs across the country, across the South, are being stretched to capacity in Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, and it will happen here eventually. It's a myth that kids can't pass to other kids, because they can. It's happened at sporting events and camps, and it will happen in schools. But I'm a grown-up doctor, and kids aren't just victims, they're vectors for disease transmission. At my hospital, we're seeing otherwise healthy people in their 30s and 40s getting sick, and the case counts are going up exponentially, and some are dying. And we have to do everything we can to protect the whole community, and that means that people in this room that don't agree with me, and their kids in the classrooms. If we don't do this, we're going to have school shutdowns and quarantines and needless tragedies, and I don't want that for my family.
I believe it's Alma. I'm sorry, can't, it's the last name, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ima Ahonkai, a mom of 2 WCS students and an infectious diseases physician at Vanderbilt. I'm here to speak as a medical expert who has been immersed in the clinical care and public health mitigation of COVID-19 since this pandemic began. I'm here to urge the board to reinstate mask mandate and other mitigation measures to protect our children. We are facing a new strain of COVID-19, the Delta variant, which is as infectious as chickenpox and causes more severe disease. The people who are most vulnerable are not vaccinated, and this includes our children under 12 who vaccines are not yet approved for. Only half of our county is fully vaccinated. As a result, the Delta variant is surging. In the last month, Vanderbilt has had 10 times more patients admitted to the adult hospital and 3 times more patients admitted to the children's hospital for COVID-19. Almost every single one is unvaccinated. At the time when our children are facing the most risk, we have left them in the most danger. Following CDC guidelines and including mask mandate is the way to go. Thank you.
Again. Folks, please treat people the way you yourselves would wish to be treated.
That's why we're here.
Yes.
I'm sorry, who was that? Ma'am, please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My name is Maya Neely. I'm a pediatrician who cares for hospitalized children and have been working for over 15 years. The statistics are staggering. Over the past week, there were 21,000 new COVID diagnoses across the state, and Williamson County has had 700 new cases with a 19% positivity rate. We are seeing children in the hospital, some needing ventilator support. These numbers are incredibly difficult to hear, but turning away from them is not helpful. There is only one enemy amongst us, and that is COVID, and in order to prevent its spread, we need to mask up. It is a relatively easy thing to do with tremendous reward. We know that it works. In fact, the school board themselves have written guidelines strongly encouraging masking within schools by all personnel, but people are not listening. For the sake of the public and the sake of our children, and especially those with underlying medical conditions or families with underlying medical conditions likely to have more severe illness, it is imperative to reinstate our masking guidelines. Nobody wants to do this, but we are now called to do it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jennifer King.
Look at the crowd.
Can you hear me? Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Jennifer King. I am a pediatric intensive care physician and a mother of 2 children who attend Williamson County schools. I am very concerned for the health and well-being of our children, given the emergence of the more transmissible Delta variant of the novel coronavirus. As a pediatric ICU physician, we are seeing more younger, previously healthy children admitted with respiratory failure and acute respiratory distress syndrome than we have in prior strains. As cases in children are on the rise, this trend will only worsen if we don't act now. We have learned over the past 18 months that we can safely send our children to school in person with appropriate mitigation strategies to prevent the spread of this virus amongst our most vulnerable population, which is our unvaccinated children and children with underlying health conditions, many of whom are not eligible for vaccination at this time. I implore you, Superintendent Golden, as well as members of the school board, to please follow the evidence and implement universal masking, frequent hand washing, and social distancing measures in keeping with the recommendations of the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Centers for Disease Control.
Please read some science, doctor. I wouldn't take my child to a doctor these days to save my life.
Preach it. Preach it, brother.
Deputy? Folks, we've got to cut out all of the side comments, please. This is a public meeting. You were read the rules of being here, which include business decorum. Ma'am, please go ahead.
My name is Dr. Sarah Essery. I am board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics.
Yes. 1 moment, please. Please go ahead.
I'm board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics, and I'm a practicing hospital doctor. I'm also a WCS mother. I'm asking you to implement a temporary mask mandate, at least until every student has had the opportunity to be vaccinated against COVID-19. This decision... Yes. Okay.
Please continue.
This decision is not about parents' rights. This is about students' rights to safe learning environments. The Delta variant has caused more symptomatic disease, more hospitalizations, and more deaths in otherwise healthy children. We have a vaccine that helps prevent spread and severity of COVID-19, but currently 100% of elementary school kids are unvaccinated, as well as most 6th graders. We need more time. Without a mask mandate, we will not be able to curb the surge in infections that have started.
Our next speaker is Nick Shiver.
Here we go.
I'll take a little bit different tone. District 9, small business owner, Desert Storm veteran, Hillsborough parent. This meeting is nothing but a dog and pony show. These guys wearing masks right here, I've been here all day. We're not wearing masks until the camera showed up. Those of you on this board that have already made up their minds are a dereliction of the duty.
Amen.
Amen. You're a disgrace.
Yeah,
CDC, Tennessee Department of Health have not issued mandates or opinionated guidelines. That's it. You have no legal authority to mandate masks, yet Brad claims authority under Tennessee Code 492203A2. This code was written for educational purposes, not medical treatments. Again, zero authority to mandate masks. Do temperature checks or even contract trace. Education is your only primary duty. Brad recently said, "You seem mad." No, I'm not mad. To be clear, mad is when you go in a cave, you poke a bear, and you piss him off. What you've done, you've poked the cubs. We are pissed off. Amen. When you look at this board, 2 names always stand out. Brad and Golden.
Sir, before you get started, I've been asked to remind the audience that no personal attacks on board members will be tolerated. Thank you. Justin Pride, please continue.
Can you hear me? Hello?
1 moment, please. There you go.
Restart the time? Ready? Go. Justin Pride. I'm representing my wife and my 4 kids under 8. who are devastated to know that this has already been determined? Everybody that I've heard talk about mask mandates is assuming they work. There is no scientific evidence that shows that they work. I have sent you 50 studies pre-COVID that shows no studies were effective. Masks were effective against viruses. It is not an assumption. They are not safing our kids. They are not. There is no scientific evidence to show that. Number two, mandates are illegal by nature. Federal code says that you are not to mandate a medical product that is by use of emergency authorization. Masks, vaccines are emergency use authorizations. They are not to be mandated under federal law. The law is on our side. The science is on our side. What is the matter with you people? You should be ashamed of yourselves. Every one of you.
I am Mary Jane Brown, proud to be an emergency physician in this great county for 35 years. My children graduated and went through this county school system. My 3 grandchildren are recovering from COVID right now. God help them not to have any post-COVID complications. There is a lot of tension and a lot of fear in this room. I could use the next few seconds to give you data. I want all of you to know how much I appreciate you and the work you are doing to tackle this very difficult issue. And I would leave you with one message: love. Listen.
Amen.
Listen to all of us in this room. Observe the guidelines from the CDC. Verify the sources. Do not let twisted science rule us. Thank you.
Tiffany Greer? Tiffany, are you here?
I'm here today to share what some might think is a unique perspective. My daughter, whose name is Faith, is 9 years old. We moved to this area 5 years ago when she was being treated for stage 4 cancer. She was given a less than 10% chance to live. It was a diagnosis that was almost unbearable. Facing death with your child teaches you a lot. It humbles you a lot. It gives you a true perspective on life and how precious and really short it is. And I also thank and trust many in our medical community. I stand in front of you today having been reminded the many harsh ways that none of us know what tomorrow holds. We all hope to die of an old age when a peaceful passing, but a painful situation could happen tomorrow to any of us. I am glad today to see so many parents here, parents that know their children. They typically help make best decisions for them. So I'm here to ask, please consider allowing parents to make the medical decisions for their children. Please allow the continued choice. In closing, I have had many people ask me if, when your daughter was undergoing chemotherapy, stage 4 cancer, if someone would just wear a mask to help protect her, is that what you have wanted? And I would say no. When my daughter was deathly sick, I kept her home. I took the precautions she needed. I would not ask a child to miss their prom because of faith. We only have a small amount of time. I want children to socialize, to make friends, to learn, to smile at each other, to most importantly, to live.
Hi, I'm Dr. Drew Flansbaum. I'm an emergency room doctor, and I have 2 kids in elementary school. My colleagues who spoke earlier have made a lot of points, so I won't repeat that. I'll just make 3 quick points. First, I see children and adults every single shift right now with COVID, and I have never seen a child or an adult with a mask-related illness, problem, but we have seen plenty of patients in respiratory failure from COVID. The masks are not any harm at all. They're inconvenient, but they're not a harm. Second, there is actually evidence that masks and social distancing work. They're not 100%, but seatbelts are not 100% either. We wear seatbelts in cars. It's a responsible thing to do. Third, if we don't mitigate this, we're going to have so many positive cases that we're arguing over masks in schools, but we're not going to have school in session because we're going to have teachers out, everybody's going to be on quarantine, we're going to be at home again, and that was miserable last year, and none of us want that. So the masks will at least allow us to stay in school for most of the time. And I think if you can keep one child in Williamson County from being on a ventilator, it'll help.
Next speaker is Elizabeth Story.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Story, and I'm not here to beg you for anything. I'm here to talk about the law, the whole law, and nothing but the law. Code 1.1 of the Williamson County School Board legal status states that this board derives its authority from the General Assembly. On July 27th, Representative Griffey, along with 10 other Assembly members, released a letter stating, and I quote, "To be clear, the legislature has not granted any authority to local school boards or superintendents to require face coverings." Glenn Casada is very familiar with Mr. Fiscus is very familiar with Glenn Casada, who also signed that letter when he publicly disparaged him during the November election, which is a very clear violation of the Code of Ethics for sitting board members. It's also a violation of ethics for this board to vote in a partisan manner and not represent their constituents. Regardless of how you choose to vote today, you do not have the legal authority to issue a mandate. These parents aren't putting a mask on their children, and if you try to force us to do so, I know I personally will sue. And anyone else here who will join me, please show a check. Thank you.
There's a lot more outside.
800, I heard.
Ma'am, you're out of order. Our next speaker is Kyle Weaver.
You guys have school. Oh, yeah.
Appreciate being here. I'm Kyle Weaver. I'm a retired brain tumor surgeon and father of a daughter at Thompson Station. Whenever children come to school and leave school, if there is a child who is infected with COVID, that's a wonderful intersection to intervene. If you don't intervene, eventually, don't know how many, but that's going to come through the school and kill someone in the community. And think about how that relates to your obligations to the community. The second thing is, if you do not mitigate that maximally, unfortunately, you at least have a modicum of culpability for that death. That is unfortunate. But is that something you are willing to have to deal with here and here, depending on what decision you make? Thank you.
The next speaker is Colleen Vanderbilt.
My name is Colleen Vanderkolk. I'm a board-certified neurologist who lives in Williamson County. I'm also the proud mother of 5 children. I'm a physician. I believe in statistics. I follow the science. There is no evidence that masks decrease the spread of COVID-19. Masks cause issues for children, and forcing them to wear a mask just goes too far. There will always be one virus or another. My sister died of H1N1 in 2009, and I take viruses seriously. We will never know the true impacts of H1N1 because we didn't test those that were asymptomatic. The virus was handled much differently. It was not politicized. No fear. Masks cause issues in the learning environment. Children who wear glasses have constant fog. Those who have anxiety have difficulty breathing. The masks themselves are often vectors of pathogens. WCS must advocate for patients' right to choose. The leaders of Williamson County need to recognize that the challenges the masks mandates create for our young children.
Time.
Let the parents choose.
Time.
Hi. Can you hear me? Well, here we go.
Yes, there you go.
Hi, my name's Lee Allen Baker, and I'm a California refugee. I gave up everything there, a really successful Hollywood career, television shows, gave it all up for freedom and to come to this friendly place of Tennessee and be greeted with open arms, and I love it here. I wanted to tell you that I have 2 vaccine-injured children, and they have medical exemptions because after the seizures and the hospitalizations, after all of their immunizations, I was granted, obviously, a medical exemption. So my children are those rare children that will just not be able to get the vaccine. And still, I would never put them in a mask because their brain needs oxygen to grow, which the neurologist can confirm. Anyway, the real part of the clown show is that you all think that you actually have the authority to mandate this. Because there are these books that I have, and I have them as a gift for you, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Federalist Papers, and also the Bible. And these guarantee my freedom and yours and our children's to breathe oxygen.
Mitchell, District 5. So 7 years ago.
Microphone, please start over, sir. I'm sorry. There you go. You're
Thank
good.
you. On now? All right.
Get a mask on when you hear me.
All right. Hear me now?
Try again, please.
Okay.
I need to control it up here.
It's not doing it. Okay.
Nope. Try it one more time.
All right, I get it.
There you go.
All right, I hear me. All right. So I'm Thomas Mitchell, District 5. 7 years ago, I lost my oldest child to an unknown medical condition, undiagnosed medical condition. So I understand loss. I understand that you can't control everything that is out there in front of you. Viruses, unknown medical conditions, anything. We're here tonight for our children, not for us. We're the ones that know what's best for them. Some of us are doing that, making their choices, making choices with them for 18 years. We ask you continue to empower us as parents, and as is our right, to make that choice in what's best for them. The last school year showed us the struggles our children face by not being able to face the world as they should. Let's change that tonight. You guys have the power. By voting for parent choice. Choice in masking our child, choice of not masking our child. Regardless of what side you stand on, know that that's a right. If we don't, we'll set a dangerous precedent and diminish the very nature and joy of what parenting means. Thank you.
I'm former United States Marine Daniel Jordan from East Tennessee and moved here about 1.5 years ago. Last year, my daughters were told if they have to sneeze, they're required to sneeze in their mask and wear that mask the rest of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, that's disgusting, and shame on you that voted for that. You want to wear snot on your face all day? That's your choice. My kids will not. Science has proven that you want your kid to wear a mask, that makes you feel good, that's fine. You do you, boo, but don't force that that non-science, satanic BS on our kids. Actions have consequences. If you vote for this, we will come for you in a non-violent way. Teachers Union, Candace Owens is coming for you. School board, the deplorables will come for you politically and financially. We will vote you out. If you own a business, we will boycott your business. In the past, you dealt with sheep. Now prepare yourself to deal with lions. I swore an oath to protect this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You harm our children, you become a domestic enemy, and we will come for you politically and financially. You have awakened the ape army, and we will come for you, and the Holy Spirit is coming with us. We're coming for wit and wisdom, too. Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Hello, my name. Hello, my name is Doc Holliday. I'm an eye doctor from District 9.
This is repeating what someone else said, but board, your authority comes from the General Assembly, i.e. the legislature, not the governor, which brings me to the quote by State Representative Bruce Griffey. To be clear, the legislature has not granted any authority to local school boards or superintendents to require face coverings or promulgate any rules related to health care or the prevention of communicable disease. Put simply, you do not have the authority to mask our kids, and you know it. You know it. Ladies and gentlemen, if this board tonight once again exceeds their legal authority and votes to mask our kids, how many people here will sign on to a class action backed by Tennessee Stands to sue these board members personally? I'm going out here in the hallway. I urge you to walk out and sign and let them see you do it.
Will?
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Wells. I have 3 kids in Williamson County schools, and obviously I just want to come in here and talk about mask policy. You know, one thing that we need to keep in mind is policy isn't science, but science will put a spotlight on bad policy, and that's exactly what we're talking about right here. Johns Hopkins University just this week said we need to look at the data, and we need to know what's good and what the long-term harm is, and then make a decision based on that. We're not there yet. The science is not settled. You know, I like my doctor, but my doctor's not a mask expert. These doctors, they're all wearing medical grade masks. Have you noticed that? You're talking about voting on putting cloth on our kids' face, and these doctors who've been quoting policy to you are telling you that's acceptable PPE. Folks, I'm going to tell you right now, if you think it's okay to put a dirty napkin on a kid's face for hours on end, with touching and adjusting in a non-sterile environment, and this is going on the 2nd year, you need a new doctor. This is no good. We Williamson County parents, we love our kids, and we already voted in action. We sent them to school without masks. Respect our choice.
Good evening. I'm Clay Travis. I have 2 kids in Williamson County Public Schools, 5th grader and a 1st grader, and you all should be ashamed of the choices that you are about to make. We teach our kids that facts matter. That's why they go to school. The facts are these: masks don't work. There isn't a single scientific data that has ever proven that masks work. Also, let's talk about risk analysis, which is the key. I feel bad for all these people walking around in masks, engaging in cosmetic theater, thinking that they are making a difference against COVID. They aren't. Here's the truth. Our kids, under 25-year-old, 1 in a million chance that they are going to die of COVID. They are more likely to be struck by lightning. They are more likely to be struck by lightning. They are more likely to die of the seasonal flu. Have any of you ever mandated masks for the seasonal flu? Well, shame on you, because every kid in Williamson County schools has been under more danger from the seasonal flu every year than they are for COVID. I would tell every parent here, don't let your kids wear masks. Refuse.
We will now take a 5-minute break so that those with children or who might want to leave can leave. 5 minutes, please.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
It's hot. Feels good in here, right?
Yeah. Where's Leon? Should we go?
She's right here. She's right there. She's on the other side. Okay. Yeah, I got her on video. Yeah. The last few have been really, really good. Well, like all the first group of people, all the speakers off the national level. The people are, you ought to be ashamed of this stuff. Like, people are bringing it. Taylor Lindsay got in too, good.
Other recommendations and guidelines across the country. We've had a lot of discussions with local health providers and try to get a feel for the implementation of those CDC guidelines. And I actually have a copy in front of me. Anyone can pull that up on the CDC website. And they start with vaccinations. And it's in the quote in the CDC guidelines for schools is vaccination is currently the leading public health prevention strategy to end the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's outside our control. That is something that is something that they put in there for our information. And then they do recommend masks, and they've made it clear in their writings that they recommend universal masks.
Excuse me, Superintendent Golden. Please put your signs down, and sir in the back, please stop making hand gestures to board. Thank you. And this group in here, please stop the side comments. We may get to a point where people will be asked to be removed. Can we all agree on that? That is what we signed up for when you came to this meeting tonight. You agreed not to be disruptive. You agreed that you would keep your signs down, and you agreed that you would not make comments during this meeting. This meeting will go a lot faster if you'll please abide by the expectations that we've set. Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the CDC also recommends social distancing of at least 3 feet when possible. They include that mask recommendation. They recommend hand washing, ventilation, staying home when sick, the health department contact tracing, cleaning and disinfecting in that layered approach. And when you read the final element of the key takeaways as the CDC describes them, it states that localities should monitor community transmission, vaccination coverage, screening, testing, and occurrence of outbreaks to guide decisions on the level of layered prevention strategies. And when we made our recommendations a few weeks ago and established our mitigation strategies that we posted on our website and gave those explanations, our safety and nursing staff came to the conclusion to strongly recommend masks. And many of you I know have seen that language, recommend, and we have some other terms in there related to that strong encouragement for masks. And we did that a few weeks ago. We've had some videos that we posted walking through that as well. And that was based on our staff's review of the CDC guidelines. And as we go through that, you all know that conditions have changed, and we continue to monitor those on a daily basis. Now, every authority that I'm aware of, from the CDC guidelines on to the folks I've heard speak at press conferences and answer questions at the state level, have put this responsibility on you as board members. The legal advice we've received from our attorneys, from the county attorneys, is that if there is to be a mask requirement, it requires a board vote. They put that burden on you. Right or wrong, that's where this burden is. At least for now. We don't know what the future holds, but that's what we know now. And you've received emails that says it's common sense that all should wear masks. You've received emails that it's common sense that no one should be required to wear a mask. And you're left with that responsibility of having to make the best decision you can based on your elected position. And I'm not in your shoes, and I can't imagine what it's like. Because I haven't lived it. It's a different responsibility, and it's a different relationship. But what I can tell you is that as superintendent, I consider myself to have that responsibility to make a recommendation to you. Because everyone we know has placed that burden on you. And I want to let you know that our health and safety team has spent a lot of time, especially these last few days, because the majority of you did ask that we have this discussion. And ultimately,
our health and safety team has to make a judgment for a recommendation to you. And based on the CDC guidelines, they've done it, we've done it, I've done it, based on that local consideration applied to that layered approach the CDC has referenced. And we spent time these last few days analyzing that, trying to get all the data we could from schools. We've missed phone calls because we've had so many meetings with each other. We've gone through that whole process to meet your request to make a recommendation. And we do have a recommendation. And I'm going to tell you what the recommendation is, and then I'm going to give you a few bullet points, and then I know that there is potential for questions. And Gary Anderson and Mandy Thompson, who are in our health and safety department, are here to answer those detailed questions from you when the time comes. And of course, Mike Fletcher is here as well. And so I want to be as clear and succinct as I can with our recommendation based on everything we've experienced, based on all those guidelines. I am recommending that you require masks for students, staff, and visitors in the elementary grade levels inside all buildings and buses, effective Thursday, August 12th. To give us I'm going to give you some explanations as to what our health professionals walk through with that. Number one, vaccinations, as I mentioned. Number one, with the CDC recommendations. In our community, about 51% of our community is vaccinated. That's the highest in the state. For 12 plus, about 61% of our total community is vaccinated. And that's if you take out the younger ages under 12. What we do know from recent data, the 12 to 20 age group is increasing in vaccinations here in our community. And of course, we all know none of our elementary students are vaccinated because they're under the age of 12. Our community numbers have gone up since we initially made the recommendations to encourage masks, to strongly encourage masks. From 531 positive cases on July 26th to 1,229 positive cases on August 8th. Children, based on the numbers that I have from our health staff, from August 2nd to August 8th of this month, we have had 97 positive reported cases from children in the 0 to 10 age group. In our buildings, based on the data that we have gotten the last couple of days, about 27%, an estimated 27% of our students at the elementary levels have been wearing masks voluntarily. At the elementary level, Madam Chair, also at the elementary level, our nurses report a total of 25 positive cases reported since we have been in school Friday. So that's Friday, the weekend, Monday and Tuesday, a total of 27 cases at the elementary level over the course of 3 school days. I will tell you, those are new reported cases. From what our health professionals, from what our nurses tell us, that we averaged about 3 to 4 positive cases across the district at our elementary last year. So with that short window of data, it's granted 3 days, with that short window of data, we've seen an increase in the start of school compared to what we saw last year at the elementary level. A couple of other facts that we've gotten. Our nurses report that they, in their research, that they've seen an increase in pediatric symptomatic COVID cases from the reports we've gotten from those in hospitals locally, and of course we have seen the reports about those cases in other regions of the country. A couple of other items related to that. We have had conversations with some of our peers in Middle Tennessee, and they have reported similar increases compared to what they experienced at the elementary level last year. I will tell you also, I want to make sure you all know that the state no longer gives us the option of going remote and it counting as a school day. The attorney for the State Department of Education told superintendents last week that if you reach a point where you have to go remote as a result of COVID, it will count as what they call a stockpile day, an inclement weather day. They can drill down and do drill down to the school level, but if, for example, if a school can't go to school because of this, that counts as one of, for us, one of our 10 inclement weather days for the school year. Just want to make sure you're aware of that. So those continuous learning plans are no longer an option. With that, I know that you will likely have many questions, but that is our recommendation based on what we have, and certainly if a motion comes on the floor, we'll certainly respect that and respect the decision of the school board either way.
So Superintendent Golden, would you please recap the staff recommendation?
What?
We don't need that.
We're not stupid.
Madam Chair, the staff recommends that the board vote to require masks for students, staff, and visitors at the elementary grade levels inside all buildings and buses, effective Thursday, August 12th. And if I may, Madam Chair.
Because COVID is more effective on a Thursday. It gets you on a Thursday.
If I may, Madam Chair, we don't know how long this will last. It's the recommendation of what
Superintendent Golden, I'm going to ask you to take a pause here so we can get this group, ask the group to please stop talking again.
You're being paid.
And Madam Chair, if I may, we don't know how long this will last, and I don't want it to last. We did not want to make.
Excuse me. Deputy, can you please escort the man in the back out, please? Thank you, with the clipboard. Thank you.
It's a disgrace. Y'all are a disgrace. Drinking Diet Coke. You control our health. You drink Diet Coke. You don't know anything about health. You know nothing about health. You're telling us how to run our kids.
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Look me in the face when they vote.
You don't have the authority. You don't have the numbers. Go outside.
Oh, you're sick. Oh, yeah.
Sir, please put that down in the back. We're going to reconvene now. We'll ask everyone to put the signs down, and we'll take another break if we need to clear the auditorium again. Mr. Golden, please.
They chose to clear. You didn't kick them all out. They all made the choice to walk out and protest.
Please leave. Please go ahead.
I would be honored.
Thank you.
Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. all know better. Also, I'll see you all in court.
Deputies, please. We're going to resume our meeting now. Mr. Golden, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to mention a couple of core elements in that context of us not wanting to continue this if our medical folks come to that conclusion. Number one, a key component of this is the fact that those elementary school students don't have access to the vaccine and don't have that strategy as a choice. A second key element of that is the volume of cases related to elementary school students. So I want you all to know that in the event you vote for this, if there is a motion and you vote, those are two key elements that our nursing staff is going to work on. And as soon as they make that determination in consultation with all the local folks that we can get, if they can make that recommendation to move it, we'll bring that to you as quickly as we can. The final thing I want to mention to you is this is a judgment call. There is no, it's professional judgment, and there is no clear answer. The reason you've received upwards of 1,000 emails on all imaginable sides of this issue, all imaginable ideas related to this issue is because there is no clear answer. The reason you're hearing from so many folks with their thoughts is because there is no clear answer. What we are recommending is the best judgment we have based on all the analysis we have, and if you disagree, we respect that because you've been put in this position of having to make this decision. So that's our recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Wimberly.
Madam Chair, I believe you
Go.
need.
Excuse me. Very good.
Madam Chair, I believe you need a motion for us to discuss. So I
That's
move to approve staff recommendation.
We have a motion to approve the staff recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mitchell. We'll move to discussion now. Mr. Piskus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so, as we've been here this evening, the first thing that we must all acknowledge is that we want what's best for the children of WCS. I'm going to wait. It's not your child. I'm going to wait. Secondly, we all agree for the majority of students, their education best happens in a classroom with the teacher. Online school and other alternatives work well for some students, but not for all. And as a board, we're expected to provide a free and appropriate public education for all students without exception. During the past year, on April 12th, the State Board of Education, as Mr. Golden referred to, approved a new policy to not allow schools to operate on a hybrid system where some students learning in person and others remote. Instead, we were required to enroll students into distinct virtual schools. As a result, a K-8 school was formed and a 9-12 school was formed. These virtual schools are not designed to be gap measures when schools or classes need to shift off campus because of COVID exposures, but to be actual operating schools in addition to the regular brick and mortar classrooms. As a result, as he said, we would have to use inclement weather days to be able to do a remote instruction type setting. So then what options do we have to ensure that we're operating on campus and in class and with instruction from our incredible teaching staff? The CDC and the Department of Education recommend mitigation strategies. And so last year, as we said at the beginning of the year, that this board voted, a student or staff member was sick, they should stay home. Regular hand washing, social distancing, mask wearing, and additionally, illness protocol management was provided in partnership with the Williamson County Health Department. Second semester, an additional strategy was added as persons 16 and older had access to a safe and effective vaccine. WCS, in partnership with Williamson County Health and Tennessee Department of Health, offered a vaccine clinic for staff, and approximately 50% of staff were vaccinated through those clinics. Others throughout the community also had access to vaccines, and then more recently, children ages 12 to 15 years also were granted access. As of this morning, 51.5% of all Williamson Countyans ages 12 and older are fully vaccinated. Another 5.4% have had at least one dose, so we're at about 57% right now. So as we enter the school year, we have an additional mitigation strategy that we didn't have last school year, but it doesn't apply to our youngest community because they've not been authorized to receive them yet. And so approximately 18,000 members of our school system cannot add this layer of protection because they're under age 12. Therefore, at a minimum, we have to keep the other layers in place. Stay home when sick, regular hygiene practices, socially distance when possible, mask wearing as recommended, and management of positive cases and contact tracing and quarantine protocols by the Williamson County Health Department. The layers that we had in place for the 2021 school year provided us the opportunity to be on campus, providing education for all through in-person and virtual instruction. I called Tennessee School Board Association today and talked to their legal counsel because I've had several questions about whether we actually have the authority or not. And so this is a response. As a school board, we're charged with several duties, including but not limited to maintaining policies that align with state and federal laws, preparing and presenting an operating budget to the county commission, hiring and evaluating the superintendent, and then as it pertains to the matters at hand tonight, the board is tasked with management and control of schools and facilities that are under the jurisdiction of the district. So as a part of this task, the board is expected to shape environments for learning and ensure the health and safety of students in these environments. Specific courts have recognized the role of schools' responsibility in regards to in loco parentis. This is the act of a parent sending their child or children to school where it removes their children from the physical control of that parent. While this act doesn't remove the responsibility of a parent for their child, parents share some of that responsibility with the school and the district. This means that schools assume custody of students or act in place of parents, or instead.
We'll pause. Mr. Fiskus, please continue.
That they'll assume custody of students or act in place or instead of a parent while the child is in the care of the school. The act of parenting sending a child to school transfers that authority to the students, to educators in that building. Schools become responsible for the education, discipline, safety of the children in its care. The law further defines that duty to protect students, includes a duty to anticipate foreseeable dangers and to take responsible steps to protect those students from that foreseeable danger. Because it is our duty to protect students within our care from foreseeable danger, and because of the impact COVID has demonstrated on disrupting WCS's ability to provide a free and appropriate public education for all, that's why I'll be voting for the recommendation tonight. As Mr. Golden said, as the current upward trend of infections decline, positivity rate decreases, and/or vaccines become available for all of the other students, I would be in favor of revisiting the mask optional policy. But in the immediate future, it's in the best interest, in the opinion of TSBA and myself, as well as CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics, and the multiple healthcare workers who emailed us this week, that we should expect all people who are coming, especially into our elementary school buildings and buses, to wear a mask. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiskus. Mr. Cash?
You'll expect a lawsuit.
Mr. Cash?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Don't care.
I didn't mean to raise my voice at you. I was trying to make sure
that you heard, because there was some disruption.
That gave me a chance to move, you know?
Go ahead.
Thank you for all that, Brad. I don't even know where to go. Sometimes I don't even know where to go tonight and think about this. I thought we had a plan, and I commended Jason for the plan to go to school as normal as possible. I commended him for making masks a choice. All last year, our parents were begging to have some input for their children. Now, last year in November, we had quite a spike. And that's when Mr. Golden said, you know what, we're going to look at our data, our school data, and we're going to take it from there, and we're going to go school by school. And it worked. It really worked. I mean, we still had problems with quarantines, but the basic plan was working. And that's where I thought we were going. And I commended him for that. But now in the last 3 weeks, we've had an uptick. And I'm looking at this little chart that we got, that there's, you know, and somebody, I think you said 27 cases in the elementary school?
27% chose to wear masks. The elementary school had a total of 25.
So since, this is what I'm going to, is there any way, I mean, we didn't even have a meeting on this. We got this information at 4:19 this afternoon. And the email stating that you had made up your mind and you were going to, you know, tell the board what your plans were an hour or so before that. And here we are trying to make decisions for all these children. And my point here is, and I sent this to you yesterday, Mr. Golden. Never got an answer. I understand you're busy. Phone calls, you don't get an answer. I understand you're busy. But why can't we give this a chance to work and use our school data? Now, but I'm looking at this, and I can see also that these numbers are growing much faster. And I did get with Mr. Anderson, and you know, we talked about it, and we started digging into last year's, and it took a while to get to this number. But still, why can't we work for all the people rather than just put that rag on your face? That's my question.
It's only been 3 days of school. 3
Ma'am.
days, 3 days.
Ma'am.
That's all we got.
Ma'am.
Go ask our teachers.
Ladies,
Then wear them.
no more outbursts, please, ladies.
If I may, Madam Chair, Mr. Cassidy asked me a question. Thank you for that question. That's a reasonable question, and it's the very question that one of the very questions that we've been working through the last few days when we were asked to have that meeting. What we have seen is that quick increase. We don't know what the future holds. Ultimately, when our professional staff looked at that and saw the numbers just those first 3 days, granted it's 3 days, it triggered those recommendations. One of the reasons you have the recommendations so late is because, frankly, we had not made a decision. We did not make a decision on Friday when the majority of the board asked us to have a meeting. We went to work, trying to dig in and trying to determine, where should we be? And I do want to invite Ms. Thompson, who's our nurse leader, Mr. Anderson, who is our executive director of health and safety, to shed any additional light into that, because of the depth of that work we've been going through over these last few days, to try to give you an answer to the question. Final thing I'm going to mention before I invite them to speak is, again, in reference to what I said earlier, this is a professional judgment call. We may not be able to look back and say, hey, blank decision solved this issue. The CDC talks about these layers, and they actually, if you get into the depth of their recommendations, they reference something called the Swiss cheese approach, where you have layer and layer of mitigation strategies. What we focused on at the very beginning of us speaking to our families to prepare for the school year is, if you're sick, stay home. And that's, we all know that over the years, probably all of us could admit to some time or other, you know what, pushing through. But we've made that our emphasis for schools, because some of those items we couldn't control. Based on the numbers at the time, we could not conclude professionally that requiring masks was appropriate, because it is difficult. It is hard for some students. But ultimately, with what our folks saw those first 2.5, 3 days, that's where our professional staff landed, and that's where I feel like I need to make the recommendation. Ms. Thompson, Mr. Anderson.
So, we've got a motion on the floor. Can I make another motion that we do?
Yes.
Is that,
You can amend the motion, Mr. Cash.
well, I mean, an amendment, I understand that, but an amendment, because I want to change it. So I'll make an amendment that we give this about 3 more weeks and watch these numbers very closely.
Mr. Cash, I'm advised that's not a proper amendment. That's an amendment to defer or table.
Well, that's what I was asking, Ms. Chairman. That's what I was asking. That's why I said that.
If I may, Madam Chair, just to facilitate this, if Mr. Cash is asking to require masks at the elementary level effective a different date, is that what you're asking, or are you asking for a deferral? I just didn't know which.
I'm asking that we give this a chance and see what the data is from our schools.
Mr. Cook, I'm going to ask you for your input here, please.
Depends on the intent of the motion. Are you asking that this board not take action on this? Or are you asking that this board take action on it but delay the implementation? They're two different things. One would be amendment, one's a deferral. What is your intent?
Well, we could take action and defer it. I mean, if that's what you want to do.
Madam Chair, may I ask a point of order here, please?
Mr. Mitchell, let me ask Mr. Cook if he has anything else he wants to say.
No, go ahead.
So, the point of order I'd like to make is that the motion on the floor is to approve Mr. Golden's recommendation. And the recommendation is to implement on Thursday. So if I might, Mr. Cash, I believe Mr. Cash's recommended amendment is to modify the implementation date for 3 weeks, not to table the motion itself. So that's my point of order, is if we understand what the true motion is.
That's correct. That is correct. And again, if it's your intent that this board wait to take action and wait to see what those numbers are, it's a motion to defer. If you want to amend the motion, if you want to amend the motion to change the implementation date, that's an amendment. That's a motion to amend. So it depends on your intent.
State statute won't change in 3 weeks.
Sir? Mr. Cash, let's go ahead.
I would like to wait for those to see how these numbers develop.
So you would like to make a motion to defer the action?
Or to amend.
Don't give us a minute.
I want to, yes, I'd like to defer it and look at,
Do you have a specific date you would like to, the next special meeting, the next regular scheduled meeting, or?
well, I'd say, you know, give it 3 weeks, because we don't want these numbers to get out of control either.
Okay, well, then make a motion to defer the action.
Okay, I make a motion to defer the action for 3 weeks.
Is there a second?
Yes.
So, Mr. Cook, according to procedure, we will vote on the amendment first, but
You vote on, it's a separate motion to defer, so, and it's non-debatable, so you take the action. Just take a vote on it, then you defer it.
okay, so we will take a vote.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Is there, I'd just like to know a date. It is August 30th is 3 weeks from today. Is that the date that Mr. Cash wants to use as the motion?
Well, that would be fine. It would give us a chance and everybody to see that what's going on with this virus and see where it's at.
If I may make a recommendation, why don't you do it to the next regular schedule? Because what you're going to have to do, if you do the 30th, you're going to be calling a special meeting, that's not regular schedule.
That's September
So,
20th.
after the next report.
So, I mean, you can make a motion to put specific date.
September 20th is the next report. September 20th.
If you've got a motion and a second to defer it without a date on it. That's what you're voting on right now.
Is that technically a table? If there's time to take it,
Yeah, it's technically a table, you've got to remove the table, but it's also called a referral, so.
So, point of order, if I might again.
Please. Go ahead.
So, thank you. I'm just looking for a clear definition of what we're getting ready to vote on. Okay, and we can't debate on the motion to defer is a non-debatable motion. So what we're looking to do is, for all intents and purposes, we're looking to table this motion without a future date, because there's not been a date given to defer. Correct me if I'm
No, you're absolutely correct. And you will need to have a motion and a second to get it back on the table at a future date.
right, and that will, if this motion passes, motion to defer passes, our meeting is pretty much over.
That's correct.
Just a second, please. Mr. Golden, Mr. Cook, so I have a number of speakers in line to speak on the original motion, but now we have speakers that want to ask questions on the second motion.
These are procedural questions, but you cannot debate the actual motion.
So if your question is procedural in nature, Ms. Cleveland? One moment, please.
I believe it is. It's if we defer this, is your plan still going to be in effect in 2 weeks? Are you still going to propose that same plan? Is that the idea? Or it could change because of the numbers?
It could change. I can't commit that it
Okay, so we're not in 2 weeks going to come and vote on the plan again. It can change at any time. Okay, I get it. Okay.
Any other procedural questions? Mr. Cash?
Well, I think 3 weeks, I mean, I think a date in there would be a good time frame to look at this. You know, rather than leave it open-ended.
Mr. Cook, can you please respond?
Absolutely. You've got a second. Also, if you would like to amend your motion to include a specific date, feel free. The second will have to agree to it.
And if I may, Mr. Cash, from a facilitation standpoint, 3 weeks from today is August 31st. The day before that is Monday the 30th.
Well, we can just leave it like the motion is.
So-
If I may, Madam Chair, just from a clarification standpoint, to ask Mr. Cook, based on what Mr. Cash said, is that a motion to defer to August 31st, based on him saying 2 weeks?
No, sir, no, sir. The motion has not been changed. You still have to-
No, I'm not.
Right now, there is no specific date, so what you've got is that a motion to basically table is correct. So to get that back on at a meeting, you would have to get that back up on the table by a motion in a second.
So right now, the vote is to table. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, without a date. So board members, a yes vote means you're in favor, a no vote means you're not in favor. Board members, will you please vote?
Your vote is 3 yes, 7 no.
Okay, so we are back to the original motion. Is that correct, Mr. Cook? Okay, are there other questions and discussion on the original motion?
Madam Chair, point of order again. I would do Mr. Cook, thank you. The people who have previously stated their request to speak, I believe their request are then basically reinstated, correct?
They are coming back in now. They were wiped out with the last vote. Right. Right. I don't know if I can reconstruct the appropriate order. Mr. Cook, would you please advise?
If you all remember what order was, I would say just go by this. You're still going to be...
Okay, so Sheila was next. So, and then who? Sheila. So Sheila, Jen, Jay, was there Mr. Hall? Anyone else? Okay, thanks for reconstructing.
We want us to clear this.
I'll just turn the microphones on. Ms. Cleveland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I am very much pro-choice, there's no question about it. But I like that the middle school and high school are pro-choice on what they're doing. I feel the WCS has provided options for the middle and high school students. They can either mask up, get vaccinated, or enroll on the online school. So we've done everything as we can responsibly to be able to give the choices. And now I think it is up to the parents. There's no question about that. But what I do have a problem with is, the elementary schools don't have a choice. Their parents don't have it. They can't get the kids to be vaccinated. Online school has already proven that elementary school kids cannot go online. Their education really suffers, and that's what we're all about is education. And we proved that last year. It just was not a pretty sight, and if these kids go remote, it's going to hurt them. And then we also have to think about the families. We've got a lot of two-income families. Financially, it really hurt them last year. The ones that, somebody had to stay home. And so I think about the whole picture. Yes, I believe in pro-choice, but when you have the elementary kids, there are no choices yet for them.
Ms. Cleveland, I think, please continue your motion.
I just think the responsibility of keeping all the kids safe in elementary school is very, very important. To keep them in the classroom, it's very important to me. Again, like I said, I'm very happy middle and high school get the choice because we've given them options, but the elementary school just doesn't. Thank you.
Ms. Abriel? Brian.
Got it.
Let's try it. Okay.
Oh, just lean in. Okay, so I guess I'll start by saying, for the record, I absolutely hate masks. I hate them. But at the same time, there's an issue in my personal life that requires me to wear them, and those of you who know me know what that is, and so we'll leave that at that. Those of you who know me as well know that I hate conflict. It makes me really sad to see where we are as a community right now, to see the tension and the anger and the frustration. We're all frustrated. We're all sad. We're all wanting to do what's best for our kids. Okay, that's the bottom line. And I have people in this crowd and watching at home that I love and respect dearly that sit on both sides of this issue. And I just hate that it's become politicized, because the health and safety of our students is not a political issue. A virus doesn't infect people based on who they voted for or what party they affiliate with. None of that matters. This is just the health and safety of our kids. And, right, all kids. And the point is, we've seen what happens when we have given the choice. We've given the choice in the last few days, about 20 to 25%. They said, at the district level, they did a survey, they said 27%. I called some of the principals that live and work in my district, District 5, just to hear from them directly what they were noticing, what they were seeing, what they were experiencing in the classroom. And with overwhelming agreement, they realized that this year, the COVID infection is different. It's different than it was last year. They said that there were 20 to 25% of their kids and staff that were wearing masks, and that's not how universal masking works. We need a majority of the kids in the classroom wearing them in order for it to prevent infection and spread. The other thing they noted, all of them overwhelmingly said that they would rather be teaching in person than remotely. And now we've heard that you can't even have the option to teach remotely. So what are those kids that get quarantined as this virus spreads? As we're already seeing in Nolensville in particular, there was a church camp and it's spreading. It's a hot spot. So those kids came to school and it's going around. And so the principals are afraid that they're going to be sending all their kids home, having low staff, not knowing, how long we're going to be even staying in school. And so I do agree that I appreciate the recommendation for this universal masking in the elementary schools. I do have some questions though. I wonder what we are considering for the students that are 11 in middle school, because they also don't have an access to the vaccine yet. So I guess, should I ask that question in the middle of this, or?
We can have
Yeah.
answer that.
Okay.
Ms. Thompson, if you would.
Okay. So, my name's Mandy, and I'm a nurse that works with the school, and I have to say, a healthcare professional working amongst academic people is a challenge, and it's also a wonderful place to be because you're working with the future of our community, and we love working with the kids. We were anticipating a very healthy year until we approached the last couple of weeks. And just short of the first days of school, we started to hear reports of positive cases. And so we began tracking and giving that information over to the health department as we heard of the cases. And then we began school with the encouragement and recommendation to wear masks. And then in the elementary setting to strongly advise, because we knew from CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics, and under a nursing jurisdiction, we are employed by the school. However, we have a responsibility to the Board of Nursing. And so therefore we look at all rules and recommendations that come from all perspectives. When we started our first school days, we began hearing reports of positive cases. And if I compare it to last year, we'd have one case, maybe a week, and we were able to contact Trace, really look at that information. The first day alone, we began hearing multiple reports. Over the weekend, I heard multiple reports from all different nurses, principals, superintendents, all different people in the schools. And then we came to Monday, and then we had another significant increase of report of positive cases, all of which we're trying to track and at least get a basic notification out to the families that could have possibly been in some way, shape, or form in some exposure because, as what we know from last year, the quarantine process, which took many days for people to hear of even being possibly in close contact, was really at day 5, 6, or later. So we're trying to get the notification out so that people would in fact respond and possibly advise their child to wear a mask. When we looked at the percentage of people that chose to wear a mask in correlation with the significant rise in number of cases, we started to evaluate the information and think about how can we help those who can't help themselves. And with the vaccination eligibility only for the majority in the elementary setting is they're ineligible. The majority of the people in the elementary setting are ineligible.
Explain how you correlated the two.
And then when you look at the middle school setting, the majority of that age group is eligible. So to answer your question, the majority are eligible in that setting.
Okay, thank you. So I'm nervous to do this because procedurally I guess I'll have to ask. Is there, like, do I make a motion to amend if I want to amend this to include everyone under the age of what?
Okay. Clown show. Yeah, my kids will be masked for you. Friday morning. All of you can come to.
Everyone under the age.
My kid's not wearing a mask.
You make a motion to amend to include everyone under age 12?
Who doesn't have the option to have the vaccine, they choose.
Should have the option to
Do we
wear
have a
mask.
second?
Right.
Yeah, what about the option to wear a mask?
Mr. Mitchell seconds. So is this debatable? Okay. So,
Can I speak to it first?
yes,
Okay.
just a note, Ms. Apri, before you speak to it, I've got the order from the previous motion, so we have that this time. Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. So basically, I've had a lot of people telling me that I'm only doing this for personal reasons, and I think this is proof that I'm not, because my kids are in elementary school, so obviously I'd be happy with the way it was worded the first time. But I want to tell you that I watched the live stream with Dr. Lisa Piercy, the Commissioner of the Department of Health, and Commissioner Schwinn, the Commissioner from the Department of Education for the state of Tennessee, on Friday, and they were asked, would you recommend a mask mandate as a doctor? Dr. Piercy is a doctor. And what do you recommend? Things like that. And I transcribed her words because I felt it was important. She said the key word is parents. Okay? Obviously we've heard a lot from parents, so we're good on that. Nobody debates the effectiveness of masks. That's a quote from Dr. Piercy.
Yes,
Parents need to weigh into the decision in multiple ways. They need to lobby their elected school board, which obviously they are. The parent has a choice on that, so it's a hyper-local decision in conjunction with the school board. Parents make the best decisions for their kids. He doesn't know the dynamics in the local counties, but the school boards do. So if the board makes that decision, that's their local decision, but it needs to be heavily influenced by the opinion of the parent. I have to tell you, as the one, I guess, pretty vocal proponent for universal masking, albeit temporary, I'm going to get to that in a second, I've heard from so many parents of high-risk kids that are afraid to say anything very publicly because obviously they have medical sensitive information that they're sharing, but they also are, I mean, this is intimidating, y'all. I didn't sign up for this when I ran for the school board. I didn't sign up to make medical health decisions here, but I did sign up to do what the Code of Ethics says right here in front of me. It says, I will at all times think in terms of students first, always determining other important things according to how they affect the education and development of students. The medical professionals say that in order for these students to stay in school and learning in person, safely, we need to have at least a temporary universal mask mandate, okay? And I firmly believe we need to have it for anybody who is not able to have a choice to be vaccinated.
Ma'am. Please refrain from clapping and outbursts. Mr. Creel, please continue.
I'm a former teacher, and I'm an advocate, and I am a mom. And I need to stay in my lane and listen to the medical experts. They all overwhelmingly recommend that you should be doing this to keep our kids safely in school. That's all.
Next up, Mr. Cash.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, we're talking about
Yes, so there is an amendment that has been seconded on the floor. Mr. Cash, please go ahead.
Well, just a couple of things. You know, you always hear, I've heard from this doctor, or this professor, this scientist. We have heard that for almost 2 years. And it's different from everyone. There are two sides to this.
Where's this
There are two sides to this whole issue here. So just asking a doctor or listening to a video, I mean, I got on several today, looking at pros and cons, and I mean, it's just, the spectrum's way out here. We are, like I said a year ago about this time, data, who do you believe? Bring 3 scientists in here, and now none of them will agree. And we're still in that situation. But getting back to the kids, everybody's talking about the age group and waiting for them to get vaccinated. What makes anyone on this board think parents are going to go out and vaccinate children in elementary school? We have enough problem getting people to keep their boosters and whatnot updated for the things that have to be done. I don't like hearing when they get vaccinated. There's many people vaccinated right now that are sick. And I'm just, you know, they're vaccinated and they're getting sick. Okay, it's like the flu shot now.
Sir.
You don't get it as bad. Well, hopefully this is working, some. But I'm not in favor of the school saying stuff like in our protocol, if your children are vaccinated, they won't be quarantined. What message is that sending to parents? Is this, all I see here is the people are being pushed into a corner to get vaccinated. Everywhere you look, that's all you hear. And I'm hearing it right here in this school system. That is not the total answer. Kids are going to get sick.
That's right.
So I don't agree with this amendment. Thank you.
I wonder if we can get a staff opinion on the amendment, because it strikes me that this would be quite difficult to enforce, but I'd like the staff opinion on it.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. Ms. Thompson addressed their recommendation. That was part of what we talked about. We talked about the negative when we talked about the red.
And based on what I heard from our nurses, the medical was, they clearly at the elementary school level, the elementary students do not have that opportunity. It's not our call whether they do or not. You're right, that the enforcement is a little difficult. Part of what I heard from our nursing staff with respect to sixth graders in essence, right, those who generally speak in 11 and turning 12, is that, in addition to what Ms. Thompson said about majority of those having that opportunity if they chose, those sixth graders are every day, some of them are turning 12. And so ultimately, when they looked at the numbers compared to what we've seen those first few days at the elementary level growing compared to what we saw last year, there wasn't that leap at the middle school in these first few days, and ultimately we're not recommending for that full 11. We based it on grade levels.
I'm not sure that answers my question practically though, but because it seems like you've got a, the elementary school, you can say, when you walk in the building, you put on a mask. Yep. When you get to middle school, seems like you would be saying, these people, you need to put on a mask, but the rest of you don't.
You're right, it's tough. It's tough.
Can it be done?
Our administrators get to know the children. It could be done, but it's tougher, and the logistics of that would be difficult.
Okay, thank you.
Did you give an answer? Did you give a recommendation? I'm sorry.
We did not recommend that.
Ms. Bridget? That was the same question I had. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jason, just to make a couple of notes in your opening comments, you said approximately 51% of the county is vaccinated, and then you gave a number of 12 and over that were vaccinated, because I guess the 12 and under are part of that first total aggregate number. What is the 12 and over percentage? I think you
approximately 61.
Approximately 61.
And Mr. Anderson may have there's probably some decimal places around that 61.
And you indicated, I thought also you made a statement that numbers over the past few weeks, I guess, within the county are showing that 12 to 20-year-old, which is kind of what I'm thinking my middle school and high school demographic, was also increasing. They were increasing in vaccinations, or did I misunderstand?
That's correct. The numbers that we've seen in total vaccinations have grown in that age category faster than the whole. And Ms. Thompson and Mr. Anderson may have some specifics on that.
That data is available on the state websites to show it by age grouping, and we pulled the total, we didn't pull the individual, what it is day by day. The numbers have been increasing every day. They go up a little bit.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I believe that's all of the discussion that we have. So, Ms. Dupree, will you please restate your amendment?
Yeah.
One moment, please.
Okay.
There you go.
I'd like to move that the temporary mask requirement be for anyone age under 12 who doesn't have the choice to be vaccinated.
Board members, will you please cast your votes?
Your vote is 5 yes, 5 no.
The vote was 5 yes, 5 no's. Motion fails, so we're back to the original motion. And Mr. Galbraith, you were up next, followed by Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not ready to speak to make comments yet, but I do have a few questions for the recommendation and how it intends to be played out. What are the opt-out provisions that you are recommending? And because I'd like to make a couple of amendments later, depending upon the answer to these questions.
Last year, we did have medical exemptions and exemptions for religious. We have about 1,500 total in the school year. We expect to still honor that.
Excuse me, Mr. Galbraith. We're moving toward the end of this meeting. If everybody can please uphold the behaviors that you've been asked to commit to. Thank you.
Okay, I'll have some more comments later, but thank you for that. And what's your recommendation on the end date to this temporary restriction?
We discussed that possibility. I don't have a particular end date. What we will be doing is monitoring the growth of the cases and the severity, and we would make a recommendation as soon as we believe that the need for the requirement of the elementary schools ended. I will also tell you that you all as board members certainly have that power to put that back on the agenda when you believe. So I would like Mr. Anderson and Ms. Thompson, if there's any other medical specificity related to that answer that you'd like to give.
We're tracking hospitalization, and we're tracking internal positive case reports on a day-to-day basis. And we are currently at the number of positive cases where we were in November, all total being reported. So as for an end date, Gary, do you have any indication?
We haven't decided on any specific end date. When we talked with Superintendent Golden, it was to bring it back as we saw things declining and for the board to vote on at any given time. It would be enough to looking at all of our numbers and making a decision based on, okay, this is looking a lot better. Similar to what it did during the summer when it dropped down to single digits, and then it rapidly rose in the month of July. So that's why we said we look at each piece of it, and we would come back when we see trending in the right direction in our county and our schools.
So if I may, Mr. Galbraith, in the event you all pass this, we may continue, either way, give you weekly updates, make sure you all have that from us. It takes a lot of time to get through that, so I think it's incumbent on us to give you some synopses.
Thank you. A follow up on the opt-out. Would your recommendation be to go ahead and honor the forms from last year and to just require new forms for those who haven't already put them on file?
Yes.
This is administrative.
Yes. To put a little detail on that, somebody had a medical excuse or somebody had a religious exemption. The chances of that having changed is pretty slim.
Okay. Did you discuss, I guess, Mr. Anderson or the three of you, what's going to be the requirements of staff for the elementary school level on your recommendation?
The recommendation includes staff in the buildings. When you're inside the elementary school buildings, those in the buildings would be required to wear masks.
So there would be no opt-out provision for staff.
Oh, I get you.
No, well, it was a second. It was a follow-up.
Oh, gotcha. Well, there may be a medical need for a teacher or a religious reason as well.
Okay.
Can you include that?
And
if they've been vaccinated or can they opt out?
well, I guess that was going to be my question. So the teachers who got the vaccine under the, not saying they were coerced, but they made adult decisions. I'm clarifying. They made an adult decision to get vaccinated, but part of their decision-making process was that they wouldn't have to wear a mask and they wouldn't be subject to quarantine. So how will you make any exceptions, given that the main rationale for this is we're protecting the students who aren't old enough to be vaccinated? If you have people who were and have been given the choice to be vaccinated, are you going to allow them to have the option to not wear the mask?
I would like Ms. Thompson and Mr. Anderson to speak to that, because we did discuss the medical elements of that.
So unfortunately, those that are vaccinated, they are still subject to getting COVID. And I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody getting vaccination or either way. I'm just saying the fact that people who have been vaccinated still are getting COVID.
Ms. Thompson, I guess with all due respect,
yes.
so are everybody in middle and high school. And we're letting them go and have a choice.
Come on, Jenny. So if I may, the logical medical question, if I may, with a threshold, and I'm not a medical professional, is there any value in medical value in those who are vaccinated still wearing masks to protect those who to protect those elementary age children?
Well, I guess I would add to that, if there's value in that, then there's also value in making everybody wear a mask, because anybody who's vaccinated can acquire the vaccine, or can acquire the virus and spread it. And so we're saying that it's an acceptable risk for the middle and high schoolers, but now we're the middle of elementary school teachers who have had the same opportunity to be vaccinated as their counterparts in middle and high school are not being given the choice.
So the CDC, of course, you all heard, came out with universal masking and the Swiss cheese model in learning about masking. And part of the other indication to protect those that are ineligible for vaccination is to in fact have universal masking, which means that both are wearing a mask, both the person that's a positive case and both the person that's exposed. So in order to better protect those that are ineligible for vaccination, it's advised that both be wearing a mask.
Understood. So I would, I guess I'm going to make my statements now, and then I do have a couple of amendments to offer. But Jason, you said that the CDC guidelines came out in July, and you knew those, and you were comfortable going with your recommendation for the first day of school. And this special call meeting kind of took you by surprise, and you had to kind of work overtime, work the weekend to come up with your plan, look at the data. And I guess if you weren't recommended then, and had we not called a special meeting, you wouldn't be making this recommendation now. When would you have come forward with this recommendation for us?
We have on our schedule a work session in 2 days, and so our projection at the time was to look at those first few days and look at it and have that discussion at the work session, and then presumably have it if we determined there was a need at that time.
Okay.
So we're 2 days ahead of the work session, 6 days ahead of the Monday.
And I've left out one question. I'm sorry. The seating charts. What is your plan under this recommendation?
We don't have any plans for seating charts. One of the mitigation strategies that we talked about and included in our original plan that we don't propose changes is maintaining 3-foot social distancing if possible, and if not, cohorts. So as an example, at the elementary school level, some of the classes have tables. Have those children stick to their tables with each other, as much as you possibly can.
Thank you. So, Madam Chair, I'd like to move to add a expiration date for this temporary restriction to end on the date of our September meeting. I believe it's September 20th, if y'all agree with that.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Cash seconds. Discussion?
If I may first, to start the discussion, my desire is to not put us in the same position as we were last year when everything was based on judgment. I'd like to, you'll be able to know that we're going to talk about this at our next meeting, and it's going to be up on the agenda to either, but it's going to take a positive vote to renew versus a positive vote to cancel. And so I would like to make sure that you're obviously going to be prepared at the next meeting to give us an update, but I would like for it to come up on the agenda. Thank you.
End on the date of our September board meeting.
If it's more practical, I would like it to end at midnight on the date of our board meeting. That's more specific.
Okay.
Of September 20th, right?
Okay, so we have the motion, we have the second. Mr. Mitchell, do you want to speak to this amendment? Gotcha.
Yeah, I can support this amendment.
Mr. Wimberly?
Yes, can we get a staff recommendation?
If I may, Mr. Wimberly, let me just articulate a thought. So if it automatically sunsets midnight on the 20th, that would require another vote along these same lines. We could live with that.
Ms. Acquia?
So my question was kind of along those lines. Is it better to say that we have it expire, or just to say that we want to have it on the agenda for a renewal vote every meeting? So we discuss it and do have new data and take another vote?
May I respond? Because I think she's asking for clarification.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I guess my request, if it can get the votes and we all agree, would be for it to expire and us to have to make an affirmative vote. I guess my second amendment, if it fails, is going to be to require a vote in the next period. So it's a nuance, but it requires one more vote to keep it. It requires that a majority want to keep it versus a majority to stop it. And I want to make sure that a majority of the board at the end of our next board meeting wants to keep it going. Right? So does that make sense?
Mr. Fiskus?
Just a question of clarity. So you said midnight on September 20th, and so that would be the midnight warning prior to school that day. And so are you talking about 11:59 on September 20th?
I'm talking about Monday night, so Tuesday morning it would.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Mr. Hall, and then I can't click myself in, but I want to go after you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on a practical level, having it expire on that night of a board meeting, does that allow for administrative adjustment quickly enough so that the message can get out? Or would it make sense to have that still with the same intent, but to allow for a practical implementation of a change if that were voted on?
If Mr. Koch agrees, I don't mind amending to Wednesday night or Tuesday night. If we're saying this would be effective Thursday, give us 2 days, so it would essentially be effective on Wednesday, the 22nd. So the mask mandate would end for the school day of the first school day that it would end for would be Wednesday, September 22nd. Is that fair? Would you agree that second?
Thank you. And I have a question here. So what will be the criteria So, let me back up here. So we're talking about sunsetting it by a certain date, but how will that practically play out? What if the numbers are still high, and what if there's still a staff recommendation to continue?
Madam Chair, as I understand it, we would have a similar discussion to the discussion we're having tonight, but in the context of the data we have at that time. As Mr. Galber said, if this passes tonight, he would ask for it to be on the agenda anyway, and we would have that same discussion. If this amendment doesn't pass, then the underlying motion passes. So one of the reasons I said that it'd be fine for us is either way, it's clear that it's going to be discussed again at the September meeting, unless we determine there's been an abrupt drop in the numbers, and we make, or whatever, and we make a recommendation in the big budget. So either way, you're going to have this discussion in September based on what I've heard.
So practically, we go from a sunset to the opportunity to vote on it again at the September meeting.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Galbraith articulated in the way that was my take as well, which is if the nature of a motion requires a majority. So if the motion is to require something, it takes a majority. If the motion is to end something, that takes a majority as well. So it is, because we have 12 board members, right? Because it's an even number, it does shift for one. So what he, in essence, is saying is that if there's a need to continue it, knowing that he would put it on the agenda for September regardless, it would take a majority. My feeling is that's appropriate for a majority to make that decision.
Okay. And one more question, and you said you could live with that, but what criteria would the staff use to recommend sunsetting?
Thank you. From a figure of speech, we can live with it. And I was thinking about the logistics of the board dynamics and making decisions. On the medical and practical side of our recommendations, we would look at what we're looking at right now. And Ms. Thompson can fill in any key points on this, but examples include positive cases in the elementary school, severity of cases, the impact of the virus in the schools during that time, hospitalization, all those factors that we've considered, those things that we'll be looking at on a regular basis either way to determine if there's a need. You all know that 2+ weeks ago, we looked at the numbers and we weren't to the point of recommending it. There's been a quick change, and now we are. Could there be another quick change? Very likely, very possibly. It could be, and so we will continue to monitor that.
Thank you, Mr. Fiskus.
Just a question of clarity too. So in that staff recommendation, if we do see a spike in middle schools or high schools, will that take into effect a recommendation from that?
We will continue to monitor all of this. I will tell you, it's been clear from the medical professionals, from the governor's office, and from the state administration, what we talked about last year, which is our number one is to have students safely on campus. We don't have as many tools in our toolbox this year as we did last year because the continuous learning plans are gone. And we are factoring that in. We are considering that. Might there come a point where we have to, step up the levels, the layers that the CDC talks about? It's possible. So short answer to your question, which I struggle ever giving, is yes.
I see no further discussion. So we have an amendment and a second to sunset this masking criteria on the Wednesday prior to the September board meeting. Is that correct?
Specifically would be at midnight on Tuesday, September 21st.
Midnight.
Midnight, 11:59. Tuesday, the 21st. I said Wednesday would be the first day that.
Okay. Mr. Hall?
Just clarify, wasn't it Wednesday after this? After the board meeting?
The first day of if it sunsets, the first day of no mask would be the Wednesday, the 22nd.
Following the board meeting.
Following the board meeting. Thank you.
If I may, just for clarity purposes, for my purposes, my understanding is what Mr. Galbraith was talking about is give us a day to communicate right before a change.
Okay, a yes vote means you support this amendment, a no vote means you do not support this amendment. Board members, please vote.
Your vote is 9 yes, 1 no.
Okay, so the motion passes.
Amendment passes.
The amendment passes. Yes, thank you. Now we're back to the original motion. We're back to the original motion as amended. Mr. Fiskus. Get back in line, please. Mr. Fiskus.
So for clarity, are we back on the first recommendation, elementary masking? Okay. So I just had a question. How will this play out? And maybe a question for Dr. Boyer, Dr. Gold, Mr. Gold, at our K-8 school, Hillsborough. How will we play that out there if we're masking elementary?
Thank you. I would like actually Ms. Thompson to speak to that. We've had that discussion in details. Ms. Thompson.
We started with a discussion with the principal. Are we capable of separating these two age groups? And he has confirmed with me that we are able to, in fact, separate them even though they are within the same building, so that we can, in fact, keep universal masking as proposed with elementary.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Ms. Cleveland.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, and I believe she's no longer there, but a good question that I forgot to ask this last time. Teachers in elementary school. I know we have vaccinated teachers, and I know how important it is for the elementary school kids to be able to see the mouths of the teachers. And so, is there a way, I don't know if there's a way we can say the vaccinated teachers, because this is what I envision. The teachers are in front of the classroom, they're 6 feet away, they're not near the students at all, and the students are already masked. And so is there a way they can teach the kids without the mask, and if they're going to start walking around the room and, monitoring the kids, working with the kids, they can put the mask on, but when they're in front actually teaching, is there a possibility of them not having to wear the mask?
I would like Ms. Thompson to speak to that as well. That is one of those topics that we discussed.
In practical purposes, yes, it's easy to say if you're outside of the 6 feet circle to apply that, then the teachers, yes, and we ask that they would put on the mask when they are working directly with the students within that space.
Thank you very much. Good. And then clarify that in elementary school, when the kids are outside, no mask?
That is correct. All the guidelines we've seen, it makes it clear that this is inside the building. So that's the recommendation in the motion.
Thank you. And my last one, this is just my suggestion. I like how last year we went school by school, and rather than, I know we have county numbers, we have state numbers, but I think what kept our schools open last year was we went school by school numbers. So I know we do have to look at state, we do have to look at local numbers, but I think we need to focus just on the school numbers, and then that will determine how we deal with this in the future. And that's just my recommendation.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great questions and really good discussion. I'm really surprised to be in this situation. 3 months ago, this was unfathomable. I thought we were out of this. I'm not where I was 3 weeks ago in thinking about this. But, you know, it's just getting more concerning. This variant and the rate of spread and the impact that we're hearing to the kids, there's a lot of unknowns there. And I hope everybody can appreciate the fact that we've received hundreds and hundreds of emails. And thank you all for being so passionate about your kids and what you care about. We were, at one point, there was 2 a minute that were coming in. And they're very much on both sides of this issue. You have neighbors and friends who feel totally differently than you do, all of us do. And it's hard to find a middle ground on something like this. You're either wearing a mask or you're not. It's really hard. But we have a social contract too. We don't send our kids to school when they're sick. We don't send them there when they have a fever. And this is on that continuum of making sure that our neighbors and our kids are healthy. Some parents are terrified. New kindergarten parents do not want to send their kids into an environment that they feel may be transmitting the Delta variant. It's super concerning. And to tell them to stay home, flies in the face of so much of what we heard last year, where people were legitimately saying, you've got to be in school. That's so important for those kids to be in school. We want kids to stay in school. Masking up may help to mitigate that. No one says the masks are a cure-all. It's not perfect. This is mitigation. And it's very difficult to kind of have those public policy discussions when it's not a completely coherent.
Excuse me, Deputy Hellstrom, I cannot see from my perspective who keeps speaking out, but could you keep an eye on that for me, please? Thank you.
There's not going to be a policy that makes complete sense to everyone. That's impossible in this situation. And I appreciate the frustration with this. But I hope that people will be kind and empathetic to those who disagree and feel otherwise. This is a time to let your voices heard, and we have heard you so loud and clear in emails, outside, in this room. And I hope that in a month, in 2 months, we're not talking about masks, and we're back to where we were in May. But there are a lot of long-term COVID cases that are very concerning. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I wouldn't want to be partially responsible for that happening to any kid in this community. And it's hard. And Dan, I appreciate what you said. We had a plan. And then this happened. And it's hard to make a plan that lasts and doesn't change. But the situation has changed. And I appreciate that we're going to have continued discussions, that we've got benchmarks in place to have those discussions, to force us to be accountable and look at what we're doing to make sure that it still makes sense. And to those folks who have said a cloth napkin on your face doesn't work, you should be wearing PPE, well, that's good advice. I think that represents a bit of a shift in thinking to where we're hearing that from people who are not in favor of a masking policy.